What's going on, Babylonians? It's me, Songs of Braze, and today I'm going to be bringing you something a little bit different that's going to be on this channel. I'm going to be bringing you a new game that I've only just really been testing out. Now, this is currently in playtest, so just take some of the footage that you're going to be seeing in the background as kind of like a beta. It's not necessarily the full finished build, but today I am going to be showing you some clips of a game called Super People. Now, Super People is a Battle Royale game, and it's very similar to, it's almost like the love child between PUBG and Fortnite. Now, before you crucify me for saying Fortnite, there is no building or anything like that. Purely what I mean by the Fortnite thing is the fact that there are different rarities of guns, and you still need to be able to find attachments for them, which is similar to like PUBG. The movement style and the overall kind of like gameplay feels very reminiscent of old school PUBG. Just know that the controls are a little bit more responsive, and it doesn't feel like you're in kind of like half gravity or anything like that over all the time. So I do feel like they've refined it to a really nice degree. So before we go any further, make sure you drop a like and a subscribe on the channel. It really does mean the world to us and really helps us out. And let's just get straight into it. So Super People, like I mentioned already, is kind of like a love child between PUBG and Fortnite, and it really does kind of show in the footage that's going to be in the background right now. And basically how it works is, obviously you start into playing. The drop is very similar and very reminiscent to PUBG. It almost feels like a PUBG clone in a way, but obviously it feels so much better in other ways. I never really got on with PUBG. I did think it was a decent game, don't get me wrong, but there was something about the movements, there was just something about like the recoil or something like that. It just didn't really sit right with me, so I never really got on with PUBG, and I just kind of moved away from it quite quickly. If I remember right, I kind of moved on from that to Fortnite, so, and that was the early days of Fortnite anyway, so before people were able to build mansions in the split like half a second or something like but it kind of does everything that I wanted in PUBG to be able to be done right. So basically the gunplay is very similar, so obviously you are able to aim over your shoulder in third person if you feel like you're able to go and land the shots that way. You can swap over into first person mode to be able to control the recoil a little bit better and obviously take those longer range shots. And in terms of like the movement, it is also kind of like PUBG. You also do need to be able to find things like backpacks and armor and all that to be able to give you damage reduction. The main thing that what this does that kind of elevates it is the fact that it does give you a crafting system in game. It gives you a personal loadout. There are perks. There are like a skill, not necessarily a skill tree, but there are slight ultimate skills that you can actually carry out, similar to, in a way, to kind of Overwatch. And the fact that some of these skills are, while they are kind of devastating, they are quite powerful. They aren't necessarily game breaking, and therefore they do kind of feel a bit balanced. But let's get into the basics first before we start diving into that. So the first thing you want to do before you get into a game is obviously choose what kind of type of character you get. Now this one is a bit awkward, to be fair, because it gives you one at the start, which is your free class. And then you can choose to be able to, for 100 gold coins, to be able to randomize it and get a different one if that one doesn't suit your playstyle. And then you're pretty much stuck with that one. Or you can pay 500 gold coins and you're able to choose from the full roster. Now, I think there was around about 8 or 9 characters, if I remember right, and they are looking to be able to add to that. But I'm not necessarily a massive fan of this kind of like pick and choose kind of system. I think, don't get me wrong, I like the idea that they're trying to bring currency into it, and maybe that's the way they're going to possibly keep it free to play and put microtransactions. I'm not 100% on this, it's not confirmed, but I can see what they're trying to do, so that not everyone is stuck with the same class if they don't have the currency. It is quite an expensive option to be able to go out there and just choose whatever class you want to be able to do. I think it also gives it a nice little variety as well, because if you're using that character and then someone else is stuck with their own, and pretty much everyone in the lobby is kind of like given a random choice, and it's completely up to RNG in that kind of sense. But they can pay to be able to, you know, their own in-game currency to be able to choose the characters they want. So each of these characters is pretty good, or designed to be able to use with a certain type of gun. Now it's currently found out there in the battlefield. So some ones are really good with shotguns, and obviously that's their designated weapon. Others are going for like DMRs or sniper rifles, and others are for like ARs and SMGs. It will tell you on in the top right of every single time of the screen basically which one that is, and what that does is it gives you some kind of like perk to be able to go with it. So like maybe you're dealing a little bit of extra damage. Just it kind of encourages you to be able to go out and find that kind of loot to be able to help you out a little bit when it comes to taking on certain firefights. Now, when it comes to the perks and the ultimate ability, we'll get into the ultimate a little bit later on, but the perks are you basically start off at level 1 where as soon as you land, and you start leveling up where as you you know, you take part, you survive. Even when you're not doing anything, you're just purely looting, you're still able to gain XP from it. You can also obviously get XP from killing enemies, so obviously you can level up a little bit faster. And there are other ways to be able to gain perks from looting. So going from that, we'll go into the pills, and the pills are pretty much can be found pretty much anywhere that's been unlooted. You can get red, green, and blue. Now there are also gold and silver ones. I'm not entirely sure what these ones offer. I've only experienced them once, but maybe we'll do a video on that, just in covering those as soon as I know a little bit more, and I've actually got a little bit more like hard concrete kind of footage to be able to like confirm that to you. But when it comes to the red pills, this obviously increases your red skills. The green increases your green skills, and the blue increases your blue skills. Now, each one of those is kind of different for depending on which character you're playing as. You can have anything between like giving yourself a nice little damage increase if you're in grassy terrain, to things like giving yourself a rocket launcher, so an RPG. There's so many different things. I haven't investigated them all. There's things like leaning perks and all that kind of thing that you're able to get, and yeah, it's just a bunch of different things, and like tracking people down, heartbeat sensors, etc., etc. I know it sounds pretty bad when I mention like the heartbeat sensor and all that kind of thing, but trust me, it is kind of balanced. It's very short range, and it just really helps you if you're like approaching a building, for example. So I haven't really kind of like tested it properly in terms of like actually experienced it, what kind of icon it will actually display. But once again, that's going to be another video for another time. The other thing that's really interesting in this game is the fact that it does have a crafting system. So when it comes to like if you pick up, let's say for example, a grey gun, and you've got grey for your headgear, and you've got grey for your body armor, and you've got grey for your backpack. Okay, it's level 1 stuff, you know, it's still helping you out, but around this, like the site, around the whole map, there are resources that will frequently pop up for you, just pinging to let you know that there's a resource there. If you go over there and you pick those resources up, once you have enough, you're able to upgrade your equipment, so which means that you can actually upgrade your stuff all the way up to Mythic when it comes to your weapons, but you can also upgrade your armor up to level 4, and that means you're gaining the most damage reduction when you're obviously getting hit. So you can do that for level 1, you can do it for level 2, depending on whichever one, but it's going to take a lot of resources to be able to get from level 1 to level 4, but you can actually just stockpile them, and you've got to make the choice as to what you actually want to be able to upgrade, because some of the resources do actually cross over, so you kind of have to make that choice on the fly as to which ones that are actually more important for you. Do you need a bit more carrying space? Do you need a bit more damage reduction? Do you need a better weapon? Etc, etc. So I do like that it gets done on the fly. You literally hold out an anvil in your hand like this and you start hammering away, which I think is hilarious. But I like the idea that it's done on the fly and you don't need to go to a special location, which means that no one can camp those kind of areas to be able to make sure that you can't get into there. Before we go into ultimate abilities though, we will touch on the personal loadout. Now the personal loadout is very similar or very reminiscent of that of the Warzone kind of like loadout drop, and what that means is that you're actually able to predetermine what's in that before it gets dropped. Now this is a very inconspicuous kind of like package that gets dropped somewhere on the on the battlefield. You're able to go over there, and if you've got keys or if you've got enough gold, you are able to open that up, and it will give you a mythic version of your predetermined weapon that your character is actually really good at. But you still need to be able to put all the attachments on it, so make sure you do carry some of those around with you to be able to get the fullest of its the fullest of its ability, let's say. But you can also determine 5 slots that actually do drop with it. So you can change anything between like the types of pills. You can choose body armor, you can choose headgear, you can choose med kits, you can choose basically anything. This thing allows you to have 5 slots of anything, and it gets put into there. Now I've only tested this out with gold keys, which you do actually get when you first start the game, and what this does is it kind of introduces you to the mechanic, and at literally no cost to yourself because you're able to open them for free. I think after 3 attempts, after you've opened it 3 times in different games, you are then kind of you do have to spend gold coins, and that means that you have to play a few matches to be able to grab that and get enough gold to be able to do that. Now it does have a gold cost depending on which items you do actually put in there, so things like the pills, for example, I believe cost 200, and it ranges anywhere between like around about 75 to 200, so some of them are a little bit more expensive, but how I currently rock my loadouts at this moment in time, and like I said, this is before the gold cost or anything like that. I put one of each pill in there, and I put a level 4 headgear, and I put a level 4 body armor. This means that I can level up my skills, my perks, and then I can also grab the best damage reduction in the game, so I don't need to worry about that anymore. So I think that's the best way to go, but like I said, I will like try and break it down a little bit more when it comes into the armory, and when I actually start needing to be able to spend gold coins on it, just so we can find the most cost-effective kind of loadout to be able to take out there and still perform very, very well. Now, if you reach level 10, you do actually get your ultimate ability. Now, depending on which character you're playing as, you can have something that's a bit more offensive, you can have something that's a bit defensive, or you can have something that's a bit more passive. Now, what I mean by that is that if you play as Nuclear, which is one of the characters that's actually in this game, or one of the classes that's in this game, should I say, you do actually get a nuclear bomb that you're able to drop down onto a specified location. This is done via a minimap, which means that you also don't need to be able to put yourself into harm's way if you are behind cover and an enemy is behind cover, and there's a bit of a stalemate, so you can call in the nuke to be able to drop that down. Now, while that does sound pretty bad, and it doesn't sound very balanced whatsoever, this nuke does get called in quite quickly as soon as you click, but also know that the damage it does isn't necessarily enough to be able to instantly kill a player. So when you reach level 10, you do gain access to an ultimate ability. Now, these can be offensive, these can be defensive, and these can be a bit more strategic in terms of their use. For example, if you play as the Nuclear class that's currently in the game, you gain access to a tactical nuke that you can call in from a spot, and you basically call it in from a minimap. So therefore, you don't need to like use like a laser pointer or anything like that. You don't put yourself in harm's way. You literally can be behind cover, and you just call a nuke down. This nuke drops in fairly quickly. Now, I know what you're going to tell me. That just sounds really unbalanced. How are you supposed to be able to avoid a nuke? That just sounds like instant death. Now, technically, that's not the case. The reason why is because I was fighting, for example, I was fighting someone behind cover. They had me pinned down pretty well. I was level 18. I think they were around about the same. I dropped a nuke on their position. I saw the feed come up saying it did 104 damage. Now, initially, I thought that actually killed them off, but in actual fact, because you level up when you're obviously in the game, whether you're doing something or not, and just through survival bonuses, you actually do gain over 100 health. You can go. I've seen mine go up to around about 140, 150. So it's kind of like a slow trickle over time. It's not like it's going to go to stupid amounts, but that was more than enough for them to be able to survive the nuke and then obviously get themselves healed up because they were behind cover, and I mistakenly thought that they were dead from that. They then proceeded to be able to kill me. But there's other things that go with it. So there's like a protective dome. There's like gas clouds that you're able to summon. You've got slide ability, which I'm not entirely sure the usefulness on that, but I've yet to try that one out. And there's also the teleport ability, which means that you can actually teleport behind enemies. And I think that one's going to be probably the most interesting one. The fact that you can just be like behind a tree, they're focusing on that, and then you just teleport behind them and just give them a shot. I'm interested to give that one a go. I want to see if that one is as broken as I potentially think it is, but we'll see on that one as like in a little bit of time. When it comes to the ultimate abilities, though, I do want to summarise that most of them, in my personal experience, are not broken. I do think that they are strong, and I think they quite rightly should be strong. And they do have lengthy cooldowns, but in the same respect, they're not necessarily game-breaking. I don't think it kind of like destroys like the flow of the game or anything like that. Maybe the nuke is the one exception, but like I said, it doesn't have enough to be able to kill, and it does a little bit of damage. You still have to be able to try and win that firefight. You still have to be able to attack them if they're behind cover, for example. So yeah, it's one of those. It swings and roundabouts. Overall, I'm really enjoying this game as it currently stands. I think even though this is just a playtest, it's quite well made, and it just needs a little bit more of a player base, I do think. I mean, it's got quite a few. I think it mentioned something like about 400,000 or something like that downloads, which is great. But in my experience, it does feel like it takes a good few minutes to be able to find enough to be able to do a solos match, and I think that even the solos matches are filled up with about 40 to 60 players. So you know, maybe when the full game does actually drop and it gets a little bit more exposure, maybe that won't be the case anymore. But if you have a PC, if you have a Steam account, I highly recommend that you actually do download this. This video is not sponsored by them in any kind of way. I've managed to find it, stumbled across it, played a few games, and really enjoyed it, and I thought I'm going to put that out to the masses too. So make sure you give it a go, make sure you download it, and yeah, just have a bit of fun. Let me know what you think. So that brings us to the end of the video, so thank you all so much if you've made it this far, and thank you all to the Babylonian family for obviously supporting us throughout all of our videos as always, and that just leaves me to say, keep yourselves safe, keep yourselves well, and I'll see you all on that next video.